I'm a XRP sympathizer.
Yeah, no, I know you are.
No, but I was just joking with it. But no, we took position. So I don't see any problems with it. Like I'm just a little shocked that Bitcoiners, I'm hearing a lot of talk from Bitcoiners now that they're scared. And I'm surprised that they're scared because I don't see anything that's surprising to me.
Well, it didn't go straight up and vertical like I think a lot of people were hoping. I mean, I think a lot of people are still looking for a payday they haven't gotten. I really believe that. And
Definitely.
someone's selling this, okay? It ain't me. So, and I don't think it's, an ETF just came along. So I just think there's some whales that have to just, get this out of their system. They're probably frustrated and tired of waiting. But to me, it doesn't really. Now, Ethereum, I'm surprised you said that about Ethereum. Now let me ask you this, because we're talking about a debate. I don't even know what the title of this bloody show is, but what do you think? Without us getting really like polarized, who do you think's better for the crypto market, Bitcoin crypto market versus one over the other? And would you see would you expect a large difference?
Actually, it's interesting you mentioned that. No, I don't think that in the long run we see much difference with crypto, but I do notice. So I watch Bloomberg when I like to sit in jacuzzi and watch Bloomberg early in the morning, and they really push for Kamala on Bloomberg. So and what they're trying to convince business leaders of doing, right? Because who's Bloomberg reaching, really, right? And that's what I was thinking, like, well, why is Bloomberg doing this? And they're trying to convince business leaders that Kamala is better for them. And that's interesting to me. I don't know if people are noticing that, but I noticed that.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a couple of friends who are very, they were going to vote no matter. They're going to vote blue. See, that's the difference in me and them, though. I'm not going to just vote on a club. But they're really intent on pushing the Kamala or whatever wagon that is, which is a little non-intuitive because it's completely against their financial position. Completely, because I actually think that I don't think there's a price that's really plugged into the stock market or Bitcoin for Trump winning. It looks to me like the price looks like Kamala Harris. Yeah. I mean, you have to ask yourself, was the price baked in anywhere? Where is it, on Trump or I'll add a few people to the stage. Hey guys, I'll add you guys to the stage. Probably just going to do a lot of rotation, people ins and outs. One of the things I would be really interested in, and I think one of the things that we can do in this room that's different than a room that's got 5,000 people in it, is let people come up, express their concerns, what they would like to see from the debate or what they're tired of, just like general on America, on the world. Hey, what do we want? As long as we have this platform and a voice, we ought to be actually thinking about it and articulating, hey, when are we going to be upset? When are we going to get disappointed? And what are we expecting from the market, whatever that market is, whether it's this kind of platform or, whatever the hell's going on. Happens to be a very long awaited debate. I can't remember a debate that's been this hyped up since Nixon and Kennedy. I don't think it's sad that we're putting these two people in the same category. I think one of them belongs there, but like to put Kamala in here, and I would really like some people that supporting Kamala in that whole ban, and to really understand what is I don't get it. Anthony Scaramucci, all you guys, you're welcome to show up. I don't understand how you're supporting this and would love to know. And it can't just be, well, he's a bad guy. I want to hear about what your guy's doing that's so different. So Henry, you want to pop us off, go for a minute or two, and then we'll just move around like we do on Spaces.
You got it. Yeah, thanks, Gary. So when it comes to Trump, I'm a Trump supporter. I really don't need anything more, right? It's people that follow me know that I'm clearly on Trump's side here. I would support the man until they come rip me out of my house. But but because I do watch Bloomberg, I just like it in the background. I just see that they're clearly pushing business leaders to support Kamala. And I think that's a big deal because these are important leaders who are going to control everybody underneath them. They're going to control that narrative with them. And as they share that with their, the people in their circles, right? Because these are leaders. I mean, they're important to people. People are going to like Gary, you're a leader in this community. Like what you say matters to thousands and thousands of people. So the fact that they're going after those people, I think they know that this is dangerous to them. Trump winning here, and I think they're just going at it with everything they got. And I'm looking at Bloomberg as like the new communist propaganda machine, and it kind of bothers me because I kind of like Bloomberg. Like I do enjoy it in the background. So anyway, based on that, I can clearly see why they're pushing it this way. I think that business leaders are happy with Kamala because what's she going to do? She's going to make the stocks go up like crazy. She's going to print so much money, drive the stocks.
Oh, you think so? Now, see, that's very interesting because as a business leader, I think she is really greatly threatening to a business. She's going to tax the shit out of these businesses. She's going to embrace more regulation. And we're regulatory out of control, man. I mean, just like totally out of control.
Completely agree.
You know, you can't build anything without looking over your left or right shoulder. And whatever they're doing in these back rooms here recently between Brazil, France, and various other state actors, it seems like it's becoming very dangerous to invest anywhere else but the U.S., which I don't think is going to be good for the economy. I mean, like I don't think your scenario that she's going to be good for the stock market is holds water. I think we would go into a major problem. I'm not sure like this. It's going to be a major problem for Trump. What do you think, Prometheus?
Yeah, I would agree because let's just look at her record in California. Okay, California, from San Francisco being ranked as one of the top cities in the world to live in just even 10 years ago, which isn't very much long. I think, we have this massive amnesia in modern culture to, today, all the major businesses, including Elon's SpaceX and his major companies, they've all shifted to Texas, and of course, you had the governor there, New Scum, as our beloved president likes to refer to him. He played a massive role in the corruption there as well. Elon recently gave an interview in the All In podcast, and he was mentioning how the California rail, right? I forget how many billions they put in, but it's like an insane amount of capital. And how much did they do? They got like 1,600 square foot done and no rail after billions of dollars. So, it's at this point, it is laughably corrupt, right? And to address your point, Henry, like about her being good for business, I'm with Gary on this. I don't think she's going to tank the economy. She's not going to grow it. She's gonna, you might have a short burst in a stock rally with artificially inflated liquidity there, but in the short term you'll see that, but the currency's value is gonna crash. This isn't like complex economics here, folks. This is like really straightforward stuff. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. So absolutely, I'd be going for Trump if I was a business leader. The man has built businesses. Okay, do you want the guy who's built businesses, who came out of debt? He was the most in debt person in history. It's like God designed him for this moment. It's like, I'm gonna make you be the most indebted person in history so you can take care of the most indebted country in history.
Listen, I think that he's the kind of guy that would understand the kind of business I've been able to build. See, I think he's just a regular guy that just worked really hard, and I think a lot of people align with that. Look, I don't know anyone. I'm inviting all my ex-girlfriends, their boyfriends, anybody that I went to school with. Please show up here. If you're voting for Kamala Harris, can you please show up? Okay, I know you still like me. We can be friends, but I want to know why the hell you're voting for these people, because they seem like they're just absolute psychopathic criminals. And I just don't even know how. Like, I can get over a guy having a little thing with having to cheat on a golf game. I mean, look, I've known some crazy people do crazy shit. Guys making $100 million a year, he's got to cheat on the damn golf game. Or, he's got everything perfect and he's just got to go hammer that secretary. And it's like, you look at it and go, well, really, dude? And, it's just the more brilliant some of these people are, they're weird in certain ways. And like, it's, I'm not perfect. So I just don't, I would love to know, other than incarcerating people from a position of being an attorney general that you probably got on your knees to get, like, what else did you do? Okay. Like, give me some action points of, you can't tell me that, like, Trump has not been anti-fragile. He has had everything in his brother attack him. Now you could say, well, gosh, man, he's a slippery fish. Yeah. But he like everybody else would have cracked at this point. And I think that's the kind of champion we need right now. So somebody that's just made of steel, man. And, but it doesn't have to be perfect. If we're looking for perfect, we're going to be really disappointed. I'm quite certain Putin is not perfect. And the guy running France,
if he's even a guy, I wouldn't.
Oh my goodness.
That.
Yeah, but see, for me, it doesn't even matter, guy, girl. Okay, like, I mean, I would like to know if they're reptilian. I think that's a fair request.
That's a reasonable question, Gary.
I think it's a reasonable. Like, if you are reptilian, please let us know.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to be critical. It's just literally the production from these people is just so bad.
It is bad. It is pathetically bad. And
well, and if you are reptilian, you should at least have to disclose it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. Okay, I'm a weirdo. I'll disclose it. Hey, what we got? Berkshire Hill Farm Homestead. What you got to add to this conversation, buddy? Or are you going to just sit on this platform and take up some square footage, some pixel power? My man Berkshire's not coming up. I'm going to pop you out. You get your stuff together, man, and I'll just kick you from the studio. I'm not going to ban you. These are my ultimate powers. Let me see. I'm an evil person. Should I ban that motherfucker from the? See, this is how these administrators probably get. Like, see, there's a little red button. I wish I could show you what I'm looking at. There's a red button that you can just launch on if you're just feeling a little emotionally unstable. And then there's kick from studio. I'm gonna kick him from the studio. There we go. That motherfucker's gone. But I did not ban him for life. He can come back in one day and pay homage to me and my friends, and maybe we'll give him a new membership. Doesn't that feel like the club we're in?
Absolutely. And what about Mike Mack, man? Is he not going to come over tonight?
Yeah. Well, why don't you guys smash it out?
Let me go ask him.
I'm so used to smash it out to a bunch of people. We got 500 people in here. Let's see. I hit Simon. Yeah, we need a few people that can, bounce things around because we got an hour. I mean, I saw these guys starting these rooms at 6:00, man. They've shot their wad already. Okay. There's nothing more to talk about. There's Mike Mack.
Yeah. It'd be great to have Mike here.
Yeah. They want to be here. Now, what's going on I'm not on Twitter right now, right? Am I on Twitter or not?
I've restreamed it to my audience.
You're on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I like Twitter better. I gotta say,
Twitter is beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, do y'all like? Okay, there it is. Do y'all like this kind of the video thing?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Like, we can actually see each other and possibly even share screens, graphs, all kinds of things. So Yeah, it'd be great. I was just thinking about the reptilians comment a little bit, because here we need to have an honest discussion. I think at this point, because we had the UFO hearings last year in August of 23. That's significant. Okay, that's a pivotal moment in history, significant event that took place. But everyone seems to be so casually glossing over it. The fact is, we are not the smartest cats in the playground. Okay, I don't think we are. Okay, I think we are one of them, right? But
Nah.
sometimes, Gary.
You're
I know,
such a
I know, I
narcissist,
know.
man. That's crazy. Okay, we're
Yeah,
fucking dead dumb.
yeah, no, I agree. There's only one fresh candidate in today's debate. I was listening to a clip from the JFK and Nixon debates, and the quality is it's not even comparable. There's this class between those two men. But just going back to just briefly on this point, and then we can carry on with whatever topic. But just, I think that's a civilizational shifting event that took place last year, and the whole world recognized what those pilots were saying, all the footage that they provided. So I think, if we're not the smartest civilization on the block, okay, that means that we need to be cooperating maximally now and making as much innovation available as possible, because any civilization that's 500 years ahead, 10,000 years ahead, 100,000 years ahead, okay, will have technology that'll make us look like, like jokes, right? Like we can't even imagine what we could do 100,000 years of peaceful civilizational advancement. And so from that perspective, I think it's ridiculous, that we're still, fighting over the kinds of stupid things that we are. Yeah, that's the point I wanted to make, Gary, that we can live a whole other different kind of civilization if we chose to.
Yeah, I don't think you voluntarily get there though. That's the problem. See, we're
Yeah.
trying to have this nice little cool conversation, all sound philosophically correct, religiously like right down the fairway. But the truth is, no one does this unless they're driven to through pain, just absolute pain. That's why no matter what happens in the election, I'm still not convinced we're going to have the debate. I haven't seen a debate happen yet. Okay, I'll see it when I see it. I will predict she is going to get crushed into small little pieces. And there's very little she could do to be impressive. I mean, think about it, right? Like, that's a real problem. If I'm a woman, like, I'll just go back. I don't know a woman that's going to vote for her. Not one. And by the way, if I did, really, when they close the curtain, ooh, evil, man. Because they're like, I cannot believe you would think that is your modicum of what you want your children to think a great woman is. Like, come on, man. You can't do better than that. You could say that, hey, you can't do better than Trump. Well, Trump ran through, let's see, 17 professional politicians last session, like a knife through butter. There's no better way to put it. Okay, he ran through them like he'd been superheated,
brutal,
against 70-degree butter, dude. Like, it's just like, and like, how much money did the Bush family have? Okay, we forget he ran against the biggest players in the world. Don't tell me this is this 8-year cycle of massive disruption everywhere. This is not just about Trump. Trump, I think, and this has always been, I've been very disappointed in Mark Cuban, because I think Trump saw a gap, and isn't, to me, the guy, when he saw this gap, what was he, about 70 or 65 or something? He saw this media gap from reality TV. He understood, one, probably with the education level and understanding of those people that watch the big screen. I think he understood. He had surveyed the shit out of these people, just like we're able to survey people now through this system if we listen well. And I'm sure that Meta and others have, been doing cool survey analysis on us without our permission for about 10 years and know everything. Nonetheless, he came in with all that AI back there, by the way, Google, Facebook, everybody's out there. He pops down on the elevator or the escalator and he says, hey, I think this is time to rock the show. And the disappointment I have with Cuban is Mr. IT, Mr. Technologist, Mr. Disruptor. He became very critical of Trump. And I never heard the guy say, whoa, dude, he disrupted that space. He saw the gap and he threaded the needle like a professional, whether you like him or not. I don't really care. Okay. I think Conor McGregor can be obnoxious. Would I bet money on him that he's going to rip somebody's face off in a cage? Absolutely, I would. Like these two things are not in the same sentence. Who cares? Hey, Conor, you want to go kill somebody? Sure, you're my man, dude. I don't care how fucking crazy you are, how much liquor you drink at 2 a.m. in the morning. I could care less. I just want the result. And I think that's what we need right now. We need a result. I've seen a cat for, if you notice, and I'm not trying to be so defensive. Do not have this, love affair with Trump or any other human being. I just don't do that with people. I'm not expecting him to be our savior, but I've seen the guy get nicer. And just think with that, all the shit he's had to fucking deal with, dude. I've actually seen this cat get nicer. Am I confused about that? Are y'all hearing an echo at all? There is not.
No, it sounds great. Sounds great, Gary. You're right. He has gotten nicer, man.
Hey, Rex. Can you hear me, Reed?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is it red?
Yep. How you doing, Gary? Can you hear me?
Go ahead, man. Why don't you set it up for us?
Yeah, no, I mean, Trump has gotten a lot nicer. I think he's learned the political game. He's learned how to move throughout the media environment. He knows that if he says something the wrong way, regardless of whether the message is correct or not, the media is going to have an opportunity to jump on what he said and use his words against him. So he's become very cautious in the way that he communicates. And Donald Trump has always been an excellent communicator. He's Donald Trump.
Excuse me, would you say he's cautious? It's not a word I would use with him.
I would say he's aware. He's cautiously aware of how his words can be misconstrued now. That's what I would say.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't see him being. I see him being apparently more aware. Go ahead. I appreciate your input on this. I got to fix this echo here.
So I could say, especially after the assassination attempt, I think that there was a level that Trump, there was, I don't know, have you seen the Melania video yet? My wife showed me the Melania video. It absolutely blew me away. And it was posted 10 hours ago. I just saw it about 2 hours ago. And I think right after the assassination attempt, there was a desire in Trump to have a conversation, but he knew that saying certain things could have led to civil unrest in this country. Depending on how he reacted, the words he chose to use, he knew that could be potentially a new January 6th type situation where they ignore, go to the Capitol and protest peacefully. He knew that would be another opportunity for them to do that. And I think that's made him very, maybe cautious isn't the right word. Maybe it's more selective in the way he communicates the things he believes in.
Yeah. I think that's. I still got an echo, huh? You guys take over.
I'll jump in here for a bit while you set that out, Gary. But no, I agree, Huxley, that we're witnessing a cover up in real time. This should have been. Where are the people who should be fired? Where's the accountability in the Secret Service, in the congressional testimony that took place? All of that exposed like massive failures in protocol. And so Melania's video, which you mentioned, I saw it as well. Really, like, you like, praise the Lord. Like, I'm glad that he's got a wife like that. Okay, like, you're lucky if you have a woman in your life who's as protective as she came across on that video. And I think that we need to be talking about this a lot more. I'm really glad you brought that up.
My wife is an apolitical person, Prometheus. She's engaged because this is what I do for a living. So she has to hear me rant and ramble on about crypto and relationships and politics. But for her, she's a business professional. She's a very analytical minded person. She's a nurse practitioner. So she practices medicine. And when you have that kind of mentality, you're a very like, I just need to know what the problem is, how to fix it, analyze the scenario. And she tries to stay away from this politics stuff. And when she saw Melania's video, it really resonated with her. And it made me think, if this is something that's resonating with my wife, imagine how that's resonating to the politically disengaged women of America right now.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome, by the way. I'm very your wife, she sounds like a wonderful human being, and we need people like women to voice their truthful perspectives here, because the gender card with Kamala is absolutely being played right now in the media space, and it's nothing against women, nothing against people of color. This has nothing to do with that. It has absolutely nothing to do. It has everything to do with the fact that this woman, today a video came out that she was an escort, believe it or not, to the mayor, right? I forget his name, but California guy.
Willie Brown. We've known this for decades.
Exactly. My man knows. All right. So so like that kind of like what Gary was saying earlier, do you want this as a woman to be the kind of woman that you want your little girl to look up to? Like, how did she get to this position? Was it because of her incredible, ingenious voting record and legislative, imaginative capacities and getting things done? Was it any of that? Or was it something else? Like, are we gonna have an odd, like, I have my subtitle here, Beat Jezebel. For those of you who don't know biblical stories, right? Jezebel, right? Jezebel, the prophet Elijah goes up against, and she was known for essentially allowing a lot of, shall we say, licentiousness amongst the Israelites in the temples, in the holy place, and worshiping false gods and idol worship. Okay, what have we seen in the last 3 years? We've seen a worshiping of we're not going to vet anybody, guys. Okay, don't call me the border czar, even though you called me the border czar. Just like it's perfectly fine to let in as whoever. And if cats get cooked, if people die,
I can't hear a word y'all are fucking saying. Can y'all laugh?
Well, we can hear you, Gary, and you sound great. Great.
Yeah, you sound great, Gary. Perfect.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, like just
well, y'all keep the conversation going.
Yeah,
don't let me stop. I have some issue.
We're literally seeing Cyrus versus Jezebel. Okay,
Christ.
Trump represents the Cyrus general type.
See,
and by the way,
it should work now. Why am I not?
No, you're on, Gary. You're on.
Yeah, it seems to be working, Gary. We can hear you. Just one last point here, which is that people don't realize what Donald Trump actually did. Okay, if you listen to his interviews from the 90s, he talks about the fact that the only time he would run for president is if he knew he could win. If he knew he could win. Okay, what happened in 2015, 2016? Did Donald Trump come up with this idea on his own, or was he approached? Because if you listen carefully to the interviews of General Flynn and many others, a group of generals approached Donald Trump. They were actually going to do a coup against Barack Obama, okay, because they had all the evidence about him colluding with ISIS and many other things for which he is criminally liable. And they were going to do this coup, but they didn't. Instead, they allowed. Notice Trump's inauguration. There's a whole bunch of military personnel going back and forth. In 2021, when even Joe Biden came into power, you had the fence around Congress. You had all the military personnel in Washington. Okay, like that. Those are significant details. I think we can't just ignore and gloss over. I think the military has played a significant role during the Trump administration, from all the way from the inception through to what we've seen in these last 3 years. There's a Kim Clement prophecy, which says that there will be a time of two presidents. You look at Trump's motorcade, right? That's not an ordinary ex-president's motorcade. Okay, that's a huge motorcade of vehicles, which suggests to me that at some level he might be commander-in-chief.
Prometheus, have you seen, so on X, there was a new documentary recently released, and Donald Trump was in the documentary, and it was called The Culture War, The Consequences of the Woke War Machine. And it was about what happened at Abbey Gate, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. But even more than that, it was talking about the consequences of DEI in our military and how this is affecting everyone from the generals down to the regular soldier that's out serving in the military in hostile war zones. And one of the things, I watched the entire thing, and one of the things that really stood out to me is that one of our soldiers had the suicide bomber that killed our American soldiers who were conducting that withdrawal from Afghanistan. And he had him identified. He contacts his commanding officer and says, I've identified the threat. The threat, I need permission to engage. This is definitely the threat. I've had 3 different people's eyes on it. Can I engage the target? And he gets his senior officer to actually come to him in person. And the senior officer tells him, I don't know. And we lost soldiers because of this. And it's an incredible documentary. I'm not affiliated with the producers at all, but if you haven't seen it, Culture War, The Deadly Consequences of the Woke War Machine, you have to watch it. It's incredible. You'll hear from the Gold Star families who unfortunately lost their children to this incompetence. And you can see in Donald Trump's own words what he did to stop this from happening in the military when he was commander-in-chief. And then you see what they did after he left office that led to this horrible national embarrassment that was the withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Hey guys, I was going to say we should invite Yuki Elliott up. She definitely thinks Red is spreading bullshit here. And
Red, are you a troublemaker?
Oh, I'm the worst, Gary. Haven't you heard? I'm the bad guy of right-wing politics. Me and Vish Burra are apparently, the naughty kids who need to sit in the corner and go do time out because the normie conservatives don't like the fact that we're in shape, we're ideologically consistent. And you know what really gets me in trouble, Gary? I think it's sad that the branding of what an American conservative man is, to me, when I was growing up, the brand of the American conservative man was the fat guy who watches football on Sunday, drinks beer after work, wears a camo hat, and goes to church on Sunday. That's what a conservative man was. That's how it was sold to me. That was the brand. And now you got a group of guys like me on the internet and say, no, you know what a conservative man is? A conservative man is someone who works out, who cares about financial literacy, who tells these young men to get off the video games, get off the porn. All right. And that makes me the bad guy. Apparently everyone hates it. I'm just Mr. Divisive, as you can see, divisive content,
Yeah.
Boom. And that's why he was kicked off every platform, 10 times.
2017. Yeah. I'm back now. Elon. Thank you, Elon.
Hey, good to have you. Tell me, under what scenario can you give me 2 attributes? In all honesty, and by the way, Henry, if that lady wants to come up, I'd love to have some people come up and rotate some people.
right. I'll
Not
send her
sure
a
where
link.
everybody is. They're probably, you know, giving their paying accolades to Mario and others. Oh Lord, I'm paying homage. I interviewed Mario the other day. Actually, I spent 45 minutes asking him questions on TV. I said, dude, you're interviewing everybody. I thought I'd interview the guy that's really interviewing all the guys. I mean, you know, why bother with the fucking presidents when I can bother with the guy? And he liked that idea. But he's look, I like what's going on here. Like in all this, I've never met you guys could be complete fucking scams, right? I have no idea, but I have no idea when I go to a bar or a company in London on Bank Street. I don't know anything about those fucking people either. Just because I have a meeting, just because I have a meeting and they're dressed in $8,000 suits does not make them any different than a long-haired guy or a bald guy with sunglasses. You know, but no, seriously. Like, I mean, we have a very. I'll bet Huxley, you and I have spent twice on TV, right? We don't know each other well. I'm going to ask you one question, okay? And you're probably in your late 20s, early 30s. I guarantee you this cat for $10,000. This cat, remember, he has not spent much time with me. He loves my energy and he likes that I'm an older guy, that I'm not sitting here waiting to snap his face off when he makes a mistake, but I will snap his face off if he makes a mistake. But I'm not sitting there trying to like, hey, I'm the old guy. I'm going to prove you're, you know, I see these guys. Well, it happens, right? But I suspect, and I don't know this, and I'd like to know your point, Huxley, because I think you're probably the youngest here. I suspect that's the leader or the guy that you actually really are desiring to show up, and they just don't show up. Right.
It's so true, Gary. Look, I'm not one of these guys. I believe we have a lot to learn from the older generation. And my generation, I think you'll have a unique perspective on this because you're involved in crypto. What I see for me, I'm 36 years old, and I'm in this weird age where I knew what it was like to play outside until the streetlights came home. I was in high school when the internet became like accessible to everybody. Some people had it, but we called them the neighborhood kids, Gary. I didn't grow up in a neighborhood. I grew up in the trailer park. So I didn't get my first cell phone until all the neighborhood kids had already had a cell phone for 4 or 5 years. Yeah,
Blessing,
it was. I'll never take it back because I learned so much where I've been able to have the balance between practical sense and then book smarts. It's a good balance. So many people have one or the other. It's very rare to find people that have both. And we need people that are willing to say no. We need adults that are willing to say, look, I know you want to do this thing, but this thing is bad for you. I made mistakes and you can call me a hypocrite because I'm going to sit here on the internet and tell you not to do the things I did because as human beings, we're unique. You do not have to make the mistake to learn it yourself. You can see that I made the mistake.
I don't know, dude.
Man,
I'm not sure about that, bro. I think sometimes you got to stick your dick in the little thing and have the feeling you can't
on the stove, right?
you can't read about that in a book, bro. Sometimes you just got to know. You know, you got to know what the wet willy feels like. And you know what?
I think Trump has something to say about that, Gary. You know what Trump has to say about that?
See, the problem is we started listening to these people, what Trump has to say about it. Like, this is reality. Okay. Imagine a 22-year-old virgin. Okay. He just like finished college. He's got an MBA in wiki Mickey Nicky. But he still has no clue what it feels like to stick his penis into a woman's sexual part. And like, that's a big deal. And we don't talk about it. Like we're like, oh, well, is he really talking about it? Yeah, man. Absolutely. It's a rite of passage, right? It's a fucking big event. And he spent probably 12 years of his life worrying about it. And he's still worrying about it. It doesn't matter how smart he is. And that guy needs a man right there, dude. He does not need a girl. Okay. Sorry, moms, but you can't help him there, dude. Like there's nothing you can do to help that boy to where that journey needs to take place. And all three men here know, I don't know if they're gay, not gay, whatever, it doesn't matter. Okay. You have to go through this experience. And that's one of many, many, many rituals that men need to go through, just like women.
Well, I identify as a smell.
A what?
A smell?
Well, what you doing on this show, dude? Okay. I don't know what you're doing here.
What you said is
I just figured out a way for us to get more stage room, boys. We just kicked the odd guy.
What you said is so important, Gary, because I see so many men that are making mistakes out here today. The two biggest motivators for men that I don't trust are men who aren't good with women because they can have women manipulate them, and men who aren't good with money because I've seen men snake their best friends over money and women. That's why I think it's important that when you're in relationships with people, you need to surround yourself with men who have experience with both. And it's really hard for these young guys out here now, Gary. Even when I was growing up, I had Arnold Schwarzenegger, I had Sylvester Stallone, I had Jean-Claude Van Damme. I had all these guys that were like masculine. Now these young guys, they're growing up, their superheroes are freaking Tom Holland. These guys are pussies. Excuse my language, but these guys are pussies. They're not looking up to Arnold. They're not looking up to, Sylvester Stallone. Their role model is I Show Speed barking at babies on the internet. It's a travesty. We need more positive male role models. And I'm really grateful that your brother's coming on my live stream. And the name of the episode we're doing is called Financial Literacy and Masculinity. And we're going to talk about this because I think the two things are intricately connected. Having financial literacy is so important as a man in this 2024 world where women can go on the internet, take a MAGA bikini and get 10,000 followers in 20 minutes. It's really important to understand how to move around money and move around women. And it's one of the reasons I like Donald Trump, because I know he has that experience. He is a masculine figure. Look at how much his wife respects him. That video was incredible. Shout out to Melania.
Yeah, she's a fucking woman. I like her, dude. She's you compare her to what's her name, Kamala, her husband, and it's like, wow, man,
dude, what a simp that guy is.
Look, the way I look at this is like, hey, do I want to invest $10 million into Kamala Harris? Or do I want to invest $10 million into Donald Trump? Do I want to invest $10 million into like it's such an easy conversation. It's just, there's nobody investing any money. This thing is going to be a runaway. Do I have 1,000 people vote? It's 93%. Now I know, I'm not a Republican. You're going to say, oh, everybody follows you's a Republican. Dude, I'm not a Republican. I have never listed my name as a fucking club. Fuck that club shit. I have sold my own stock before. So there comes a time hey, look, the right answer is dump. I mean, by my own stock. It was a public company, right? But I just oh, okay, we're done now. This is no longer, but I'm a very extreme person. So for me, I keep looking at this other side and trying to figure out why anyone in their right mind could vote for these people. Okay. Knowing full well they're not really in control. Who's running this country today, this second? She's doing a debate, so she's not running it. So who is running it? What's happening here?
Reptilians. No, I'm joking.
Right? I heard today that, hey, Gary, you would be really comfortable with who's running it. That's not the point, dude. The point is, nobody elected those people.
Yep.
Right? This is America. And we literally, I had a rough weekend this weekend. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I think way too often people that are on TV, radio, and are successful people get colored up and hey, they have a unique world. And then you start looking around at your own life and you're like, dude, I don't seem to be as cool as Grant Cardone. I don't have 2 helicopters and a big old long, I
You
mean,
don't
not
need
just
to
a
get
plane, he's got the best plane, right? So, and then you start looking, right, at people. We're in this age. If I'm not really honest with myself, I'll just, okay, it doesn't matter, but it does matter. Okay. Because people are getting, the sad thing about COVID was all the teachers and all the scientists failed to remind everyone, hey, you put a mask on kids, you have just curtailed about 90% of all their communication ability. That will change their ability to communicate and understand what's going on in their universe for their entire life. You shut down a massive receptor of data from young children. Like, I'm extremely aware. I ain't putting shit on my face, but I don't think my other parts of my family were that aware. Okay, so I don't know what the difference is. I got the gene, whatever, but like, I have a responsibility to look around and go, whoa, this is really scary, man. People are just stepping in line, and it includes your own family. See, this is a problem because you have your own family disagreeing with you, more polarization. And this is what I don't see Trump doing, trying to keep this kind of relevant to this tonight. I see one guy who, by the way, was not always a Republican. I'm not convinced he's a Republican today, quite frankly. He stuck one of his relatives in the RNC, so she's fucking messed the RNC up, I think. Like, if they go back on the whole RNC thing, I'm out. Like, I wish I wouldn't have invested my money. I would not. I was asked to invest in the RNC. I'm like, fuck you guys, dude. No RNC, no DNC. We don't need any middlemen. No more of these convention people. This is part of the problem, okay? Just go find out who are these people that are running this shit. You got two people running for office, and then you have all these minions stirring a fucking pot, dude. Guess what they're making? I think 10 to 20% of my fucking Bitcoin went to some middle brokers in the process. And you can make Trump about that. That's not about Trump. That's about the process. I'm not making that about Trump. Okay. Like, this is people make a living doing this shit. And people that make a living doing this shit. Like, when you can make 10 and 15, I just found this out. Wow. I could raise $100 million and make 15 million bucks. Really? Really? Just hanging around?
As long as you got the
RNC, I get to get on my private jet and fly around and have dinner with fucking really rich people and raise 15, 20 million they're going to give anyway. And then I get to write all those. Are you kidding me? 15%, dude. This is like working for a super church. So the whole process, I mean, our ability to be able to invest, like, I can give $10 million to a super PAC if I want. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
It is. It's redonkulous.
I don't even know how you fix it because it's so embedded in the system. Anyway, sorry to go off, but
no,
what I was looking for was two attributes from about Kamala that you can look at and go, wow, she actually is the right person. What two attributes does she have that qualifies her for being where she is today? In all seriousness, go ahead, Prometheus. You look like you got the answer right on you.
Oh goodness.
There you go. Go ahead.
Her laugh is so it's great for policy. You heard Putin, just sardonically saying that he wants to support her candidacy precisely because of her laugh. No, but silliness aside for a second, what you just mentioned, I thought was so significant, and I really want to share a thought on that, which is that this is a permanent embedded system. And what we're seeing is just puppets being recycled. Joe Biden, they realized he wasn't going to get the votes. Okay, they just replaced him. I'm sorry, I thought this was the United States where you voted for at the primary level to get a leader for your party, right? And they just casually like deleted the guy like like a bad boyfriend, like it's unbelievable, almost. And so, how do you, to answer your question, Gary, how do you address this? I think first and foremost, you need ethical, brave men and women who've gotten stuff done. Look at RFK. Okay, RFK joining Donald Trump on this ticket is, I think this is so historic. It's so historic on so many levels. I agree with you, Gary, that I'm not fully convinced either that Donald Trump is a Republican. Okay, but I think he's using that vehicle, obviously.
It doesn't matter. I don't think it like who cares. I actually think it matters. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm American. That's what we should start
American,
saying.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Be nationalistic, okay? So, but RFK has sued Monsanto for billions. Okay, he's gotten one of the highest payouts in history. He's incredibly aware, keenly aware of the regulatory capture by the industries that they're supposed to regulate. It's a revolving door between the FDA and big ag, or the CDC, and Pfizer and Moderna's board and whatnot, right? So because he's got that wealth of experience, and he's won, by the way, he's won in court. I think this represents like such a significant moment, because it's not just Donald Trump now. Okay, there's a group of sharks, a group of lions, okay, who are like Tulsi Gabbard. What, like, she is literally Wonder Woman. Okay, like Elon Elon wanting to run the Department of Government efficiency.
Doge, baby.
Doge. Exactly. I think this is awesome. I think this is a phenomenal time to be an American right now. I would be like, as a, even just as a Brit, I'm so excited for you, and I feel the love, and I feel the freedom in the air. So I think we're coming into a exceptional 4 years. It's going to be challenging. There's going to be war. There's going to
I
be
hope you're
many
right,
other
dude.
things. Oh, it's
I
coming,
hope,
Gary.
I
The
hope you're
signs are
right. I
there.
tell you what, though, your country is completely fucked up. It's
Yeah, I agree.
like I lived there for 14 years. Love it. Not sure I would fly in. Like it would scare me to fly into London right now. Hey, Sam,
well,
did I
Tommy
break up a
Robinson,
date on you,
we're
Sam?
fighting.
Did I mess your date up? I think Sam was
No,
out there
not at
getting
all.
some doodle, and I said, "Hey, bro, I'm starting earlier than fucking 9 o'clock, bro. I ain't fucking waiting until 9:30."
No, it's great. I'm happy to be here. I know I was just doing some errands and actually meal prepping on a grill, so I just had to clean and wash up because it's like 100% humidity outside. So it's like, let me not look disgusting and then get on camera instead of everything up.
It is not 100% humidity. This is actually very good, but it is
That's
hot.
yeah.
Fucking
very
September,
hot.
bro. I mean,
I know.
welcome to Florida, son.
That's right. Well, and you know this. I sweat in air conditioning. So
yeah, I mean,
being outside,
Sam has to have his own office at my house because, like, hey, Gary, your AC is just not sufficient for me. It's part of his fucking package. Hey, fuck you, you woke motherfucker. He called me the other day. He said, "Hey, man, your AC's broken." I'm like, "Well, fucking you call the AC guy, dude. You're the one getting paid."
That's right. And oh my gosh, no AC in Florida is like a death sentence. Like
I grew up with
immediately.
no AC in Louisiana, dude. See, you punks.
I'm
Man,
weak.
when you come to Bangladesh, Sam, like,
you guys have to remember, man, 100 years ago, no one had this. Okay,
I know.
There's a joke
Europe
in
still
Houston.
doesn't have it, Gary. Most of Europe still doesn't have AC.
There's a joke in fucking Houston, Texas, and the question is, hey, what's the average temperature in Houston? And the answer is 72 and dry. Because we have the best AC on planet Earth, right? But you go to England and you're like, oh yeah, I need an AC in that fucking bedroom right there. Sir, you will use it 4 days of the year. Awesome, dude. Bring it. They're like,
well, I'm always laughing because I hear about these heat waves in the UK actually, and I'll see on the news like massive heat wave, and then it translates to 80 degrees.
No, it's 93 and it's hot as shit, dude. And there's no air moving. And like you start to realize the AC is such a beautiful, beautiful. Like, I am not moving to fucking Puerto Rico. Okay. I have a lot of Bitcoin. I'm bringing my ACs with me, dude. I'm bringing my air conditioning. Like, I think one day y'all are laughing. Okay. I'm probably going to have to rough it. I'm probably going to have to wake up one day and go, shit, dude, I need to learn how to clean every one of my weapons, which, you know, there's a lot of different weapons on this planet. I mean, not all of them clean out properly the same way. And just so much to know about keeping. I cannot believe my family, my wife's kids, my wife's parents, like, remember traveling all the way across the United States in a freaking cart, man. And I remember my grandfather was born on the boat. They had no AC, right? And this is exactly what people in various countries, they're coming to England or Germany, they have no AC, 40 people in a room. I mean, they're stacking and packing like sardines. Can you imagine that? We are really a spoiled unification of 300 million people. I mean, there's a lot of people in London right now. Can you imagine, dude? Prometheus, 20 people in central London.
I've seen it, Gary.
In a 800 square foot flat.
Yep, I've seen it. It's like it's when I lived in Singapore, my mom, she made a documentary exposing the migration companies. Like, a lot of them would give these false contracts to Bangladeshis. They would come over and thinking that they had a job. They'd be packed into these sardine, as you described, containers, and live in inhumane conditions. They would sometimes get work, sometimes not. It was completely different from what they were sold. And so she exposed all of this. And growing up, I've seen that. I also grew up in Bangladesh, which is a pretty, it's pretty ghetto sometimes in down there as well. But we're a freedom-loving people, by the way. We just threw out our dictator, and we also have guns. So we're a freedom-loving people. But exactly as you say, Gary, like, there's been a generation of weak men bred, and we're seeing the consequences of that having compounded. But I think we're also coming at a time. I look at the zeitgeist now, the conversation we're having now, and we've had across Twitter, especially this last year, 2 years. Gary, I've never seen this much freedom in opinion, exposing the deep darkness. And, call me woo-woo, okay? But I truly believe that we're living through a move of God right now, the likes of which the world has never seen. I truly believe that we're witnessing something prophetic, something spiritually significant. I believe that we're a generation that's been talked about for eons, because we're actually going to bring about the kingdom of God that's been prophesied to come about for 1,000 years. I think we are that generation, so I'm confident that we're going to do this regardless of what the haters say.
I like that, Prometheus. That's a really good point, man. Hey, Prometheus, if you don't follow, like, Red and I get together a lot, spend a lot of time together. Come join us in the Bohemian Bros. And not to interrupt. Yeah. We spend a lot of time. We play stupid music. We wrote a song about banana moonshine and F-18s the other day. And you're just welcome, man. And anyway, it would be awesome.
Hey guys, I'm gonna start removing some of you. Can you guys hear me or not?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, sorry,
I'm gonna start removing a couple of you guys, and Sam, I think's got a something he wants to put up. Sam, do you want to put that up or what?
Well, you got to add it, but I just have the debate live stream from ABC.
Yeah. I don't mind dropping down, Gary, if you need space or anything.
Yeah, no problem. That's what I'm going to do. Just make a little room, and then we can bring you guys back up later.
All right, no worries. Take it easy,
from
guys.
Studio. It's such harsh words. Kick from studio. Thank you, Henry. Appreciate it. Thank you, Prometheus. Good to have you guys. And let's see, Sam. What do you have? Hey, Hux, we'll come back to you. Okay, man. Thank you for being here, buddy. Appreciate it. And let's get other people. If you guys are here and you want to watch the debate together, very interested in your comments, your concerns. What do you want from politicians today? What do you want from your leaders? That's what Sam and I would like to know. I think the more we can express what we want to our leadership, and be very clear, I think that helps our position. What do you think, Sam? Is this going to be, I asked these guys before you showed up, hey, give me a couple of redeeming factors on both these people. Nobody ever came up with any answers. Give me some redeeming things about Kamala.
I can tell you one redeeming thing, but you'll never hear about it. And it's only because I actually know people who work for her campaign or have worked for her campaign in the past. And I have heard that she is very kind and nice to some of the people who work for her, right? That she is not a terrible boss. And that's what they've told me. Now, of course, maybe they have a bias. They're working for her because they like her, right? But I do find that interesting because you'll see in the news that her campaign has had super high turnover. But just from a few people that I know who have worked for her as vice president have said they've really enjoyed working for her, actually. Which is, it's interesting, right? I mean, I think there's something to be said about being a good boss, I guess, even if that boss is ruining the country. Right?
What okay,
But
so that's what you heard as a commentary, and that's
yeah,
interesting. Surprises me, but do you see anything valuable in what she has to offer? And then we'll move to what do you see in Trump that attracts you?
no, I think all the value that she has to offer has recently come from her actually repeating Trump's talking points. Right now, who knows if she'll actually fall through on that? But she's become more anti-China. She's started talking about the border a little bit more. Like she's replicating Trump's policies. So if I like Trump's policies, then I by definition have to say, well, Kamala's headed in the right direction. Now, do I trust her? No, not at all. Because I think those are just talking points. But if I were to take her at her word, I would see value in that, and that she's quote unquote sticking up for some of Trump's talking points.
Yeah, don't know how we got here though. You're 27, right?
Yeah.
How does a country this powerful get to a point where I literally just asked a 27-year-old guy who studies politics, hey, give me 2 redeeming factors on someone, and like I'm kind of sensing you had a hard time doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not even trying to belittle her, okay? Like it's a state of this country that I'm concerned about. I don't care about her. I'm like, wow, seriously? There are people out there that saying they're going to leave this country if Kamala Harris doesn't get in. Now, maybe they're not saying that. Maybe they're saying, hey, if Trump gets in, I'm leaving. But I'm having a very difficult time understanding how people get there.
Well,
because when I compare Trump and her, I'm like, she has done nothing except being an attorney general.
Yeah, and a bad attorney general. I mean, the fact about Kamala is like, I can give you some Democrats that I find respectable. Like, I could even tell you, one thing I respect about Nancy Pelosi is she's vicious, right? She's a smart lady. She's just like Mitch McConnell. She knows how to use the rules to her advantage. She's a very powerful person. That lady's got balls. Like, I don't like her, but Nancy Pelosi, in my opinion, has balls. Like, she is an aggressive person who does whatever she needs to do to get what she wants, right? I can look at former Democrats like the RFK Juniors, like Tulsi Gabbards. And I could even look at some of our local Democrats. I could talk to you about Jane Castor and be like, well, she's given a lot of money to Tampa and gotten Tampa well-funded on the federal budget. But I think it's so like Kamala, I'm like, well, you failed as attorney general. Crime went higher. You didn't, in my opinion, didn't really earn your way up the ladder. I was watching Charlie Kirk talk to some kids, and he was like, Kamala is essentially a DEI hire. And they'd be like, DEI hire? She's not a DEI hire. She got the job because she's black. I'm like, and he's like, yeah, exactly. Like, that's the point. Like, where's the merit? Where's the merit? Because there's tons of people who I think in the Democratic Party who are vicious, have skills, I think really see really have ambition. Kamala, I mean, I don't know. Her and Joe Biden are both, their entire careers have been in public service, right? As if that's the right term. But what have they done? What have they accomplished, right? What has Joe Biden accomplished?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. See, Joe, you're never going to hear me talk about him.
No, he's gone.
He's gone. He's history.
Wait, isn't that
dude.
creepy? Like,
Hey, look, I thought I had a good scenario. Okay. I think you actually like, hey, Gary's not so politically stupid. Gary's like working machinations out going, shit. I thought that was a good bet, dude. See, I was trying to get that bet up to like 20 to 100 to 1. Because what I'll do is I'll layer bets. I do one for $10 for 3.
Yep.
Right. Okay, give me 3 to 1 odds, 5 to 1 odds. Then I go, hey, I need 10 to 1 odds now because I'm filled. Because I heard no one willing to sell the fucking thing. I'm like, wow, why isn't anyone like going, hey, Gary, I'm going to do $1,000 with you, bro. And I'll give you 101. Oh, no, really? They should have hurt me. And I'm like looking at it going, wow, you guys are actually, this is the way I survey people. I do these bets and I don't really care about the bet. I'm actually going, why isn't anyone walking in here going, hey, I'll do 10 grand for that dude? And I'm like, because you guys actually don't think she may not show up. Who wants to bet $500,000 it doesn't start on time? Like, I'll bet on anything. See, like that. When I'm in the trading world, we will bet on freaking anything.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting. Henry's down there going, whoa, $500,000 on if it's going to be late or not. It will most certainly be late. Want to bet?
Now let's I know we're coming up here. Do you want to just
sorry, I got carried away.
No, do you just want to test it to make sure that you can hear it and that the audience can hear it?
So far, I can hear nothing they're saying.
Let's start with you. You
there
have
it is.
said
Can you hear that?
Kamala
You can hear
Harris
that?
has to own the future.
Perfect. Can you hear it?
But she
Yes.
also has to own
And
the
I can
past.
probably
So
manage
how does she do
the
this?
language too.
And I can mute
the
it.
sound.
I can mute it.
About the future, you draw from your past. You
And
draw
then
from
I
your
can
past
put, there you go.
experiences. She draws from how she was raised. The values
now
that was
let's keep
instilled
this
in her
on.
as a young lady. Look, she is steady.
And if
on
the
her
audience
feet,
can't really
doing
hear us
herself,
talking
she's still
and
talking to
watching her,
American people, sitting there
let
at
us
the
know
door,
if it's really
putting
confusing.
at
But let me
kitchen
tell you, this
table
lady
and
right
say,
here,
look, I have some ideas that I want to share with you. There's so
Dude,
much.
I don't know
that
her
we've
name.
put together over the
Donna
last few
Brazil.
years.
fucking
Donna
evil,
Here's
Brazil.
what
dude.
I think
Oh,
we can do
fucking
together over the
evil,
next
bitch.
4
Donna
years.
Brazil.
Be positive
Oh
in her
my
approach.
God.
And
This is
really
why I won't
remind
go
the
into
American
politics,
people that
dude.
we don't want to go back
Ever.
to the chaos and the
That lady.
confusion, the disaster that made
There's
the
1,000 of
American
those. Am I
people
correct
go
or
out
what?
droves.
I
Oh,
don't know this
yeah.
lady.
Inspired to form
I don't know this
president
lady,
and say,
dude.
I want to be
Okay,
a
but
president
I'm
that lead
saying
all Americans.
that is
I
the
want to keep us
political
strong and
fucking
secure.
circus right
And
there.
here's
Well,
the
and
That lady.
Gary,
that I
notice
want to share with you
we
tonight.
don't even think about her,
Donna,
and
I,
she's
of
still
course,
around.
meant,
They
Biden
don't
team.
leave.
She has
They
to
It's
own
HR,
up
bro.
to the
It's
Biden
HR.
administration's any mistakes they made too, and Donald Trump is going to go
It's
after
HR.
her on that.
It's absolutely
Martha,
amazing.
they made mistakes. Donald Trump
This
and
is
I love how-
absolutely an
mistakes. You know
HR
what? We
person.
focus on our mistakes. We won't
ABC's
focus on
hosting the
all of good
debate,
things that
and
we
this
could
is
do
the person
together
they're
as
having on
Americans.
before
I
the
do
debate.
believe
Wow,
there
I
is
wonder what their
something to say
bias
about
is,
people
Gary.
who are
Yeah, she's the
now
one,
able
if
to
I'm not
work. The people who
mistaken,
can buy
she's the
their
one that
insulin without
leaked
paying over
the
$1,000.
questions to
35
Clinton,
hours.
Hillary
There's so
Clinton,
much good that
8
she can
years
talk
ago.
about from
Yeah.
the
Fucking
visits that
thief,
she's
dude.
made
She's
to
a cheater.
small towns across
Okay.
this country,
You not
large
only
cities
that, she
across the
got
country,
caught,
bring
bro.
us together. The American
Not only
people
is
And
she a
this is her
cheater, she
reward.
got caught.
Her
not
reward
just
for
for
getting
Wow.
caught in cheating
another
is she
era.
gets to comment before
And
the
Reince,
next
I
debate.
want your thoughts
And
on you
have the
also
hair
prepped,
do
Donald Trump for
included. She
debates
got that
back in
paid by the U.S.
2016.
government.
I
U.S.
believe
taxpayer
what
payer
Donald
paid
Trump
for
did
that
And
haircut.
here's our boy.
We'll
We know
see
who this
tonight.
is. This is Reince.
Can he be disciplined about talking about policies and what kind of president he will be?
Why would they ask Ryan's?
Well,
They
he
wanna stir
certainly
the pot?
can be. I mean, the reality is
Yeah.
Donald Trump
To
doesn't
appear
have
even.
a lot to lose tonight. I mean, his support has always been almost unmovable. So the second piece is the honeymoon, I think, is over for Kamala Harris. And you all kind of touched on it with Donna. Kamala Harris has to answer for the state of the economy in the Biden administration, the border. Her past positions on decriminalizing the border, decriminalizing certain drugs, what her role was in Afghanistan. So really, the spotlight is on Kamala Harris tonight because she played a role in the Biden administration. She wants to act like she's not an incumbent. So this is where the focus is going to be. And she's got a lot to answer for tonight. And I think that's where Donald Trump's focus will be and where it actually should be tonight.
Well, one of the things he wants to do is have female.
What do you think,
voters
Sam?
look at him.
Is Ryan's
How does
right?
he
Is
attract
that
female voters after saying things about Kamala Harris?
Well, he's
We'll see
right
how
that
he
her
pronounces
momentum's been
things he
crushed
said about
because a
Kamala
lot of it
Harris,
was
that
fake.
she's dumb as a rock. That's
And
not
for
really
her to
gonna
have
attract
momentum,
female
she
voters, is it?
constantly needed positive media. She
Yeah,
screwed up a
no,
scripted
no,
1
but
hour,
I also
a
think that
scripted
just like he did
1
in the
hour
first
interview.
debate
They could
against
use
Joe Biden, I
18
think
minutes, and even the
formula
18
here
minutes was
is
bad.
to constantly
So-
tie Kamala
So-
Harris to the Biden administration.
So if we
which is
can,
where Trump is winning
let's see, can I
against
make
her
him
on the economy, inflation, and all
go
these other
quiet or
problems that
something?
we're
But
having,
Oh,
and
I
then
can
sit
control
back
his. You
and
want me to
let her
mute him?
talk.
Just
so
tell me.
this is the question, right? The audience, this is the question. The debate starts in 2 minutes. One, $10,000, it will be late to anyone that wants to play. Two, and I can only take so many of these bets, and Sam will be the arbiter. Okay, I'm not doing these bets with somebody thinking they heard the fucking deal. He's going to be the arbiter. Yes, he does work for me. Fuck you. Okay, period. So like it or don't like it. But dude, we have a minute and a half. How long is this debate going to last? And what's the score going to be in 90 minutes?
Man, the last debate, they stuck to the time. Remember, we were actually surprised. We were like, "Oh, it's over." Like we were like, "What?" It was very lackluster. So I bet you they'll try to keep it on time strictly because they want as little airtime for Kamala as possible. Would be my guess.
Yeah,
there.
no, but it's scheduled for 90 minutes, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. It's supposed to start in 1 minute. I'm saying it starts late and it doesn't make it the full 90 minutes. Now the next question is, how long does it take before she stumbles over her clitoris and goes scrambling down the entire stairwell and it turns into a shit show? Does it take 3 minutes or 30 minutes? I don't think it's going to take much longer than that.
No, I think 30 minutes.
Wow,
I think
that's
Trump
so
needs to get in
sad.
some jabs. I think.
Do you? If I'm
Yeah.
Trump, dude, I let her do her all her own. I let her beat herself up. I don't pound on her too much.
It's, we'll see. I mean, Trump's not going to take shit. Oh, see, here we go.
Okay. Ready?
Kamala Harris and
Okay,
former
guys.
President Donald Trump. Their first face-to-face meeting in this presidential election, their first face-to-face meeting ever.
A historic race for president upended
How do I get
just
that
weeks
on?
ago. President Biden
Oh, just change the
withdrawing
view
after his
down below.
last debate, a new opponent.
The candidates separated by the smallest of margins, essentially tied in the polls nationally and in the key battlegrounds, including right here in Pennsylvania, all still very much in play. The ABC News presidential debate starts right now.
This is an ABC News special, the most consequential moment of this campaign. Kamala Harris,
Together, we will chart a new way forward.
Donald Trump,
We will soon be a great nation again.
face to face, historic. The ABC News presidential debate. Here now, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Good evening, I'm David Muir, and thank you for joining us for tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC and around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st. Of course, that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals and 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or responses. Their microphones will only be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
Here we go, man. It's a fucking fight.
Kamala Harris. Accept the debate.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good
How
evening. We are looking
awkward.
forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year, because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy. And the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is, under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something For 52 years, they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart and strength of 6 Supreme Court justices, we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions, very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. Now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did exactly as he intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten what everybody wanted. Democrats, Republicans, and everybody else, and every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea. And how unfair that would have been, part of the reason they lost, to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that they talk about abortion.
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if it did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. in all fairness. J.D., and I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans. They didn't even come close to getting student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. So wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years, they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I have to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama
See,
and
I
the
don't understand why you
legislature
get
2
stuck
days
on
later
stuff like
voted
this.
it in. I've been a leader on it.
You know,
They
seems
know
like he's
that,
just
and
chasing a
everybody else
rabbit down
knows
a
it.
hole.
I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing, you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you
That's
answer the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question, would you veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine
Wow,
what we
he's
want to
really
do with the
going on
baby.
the
President
offensive
Trump,
on it.
thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue
Nobody
that's important to
expected that.
Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many
this is her
families watching
pitch.
tonight who have been personally affected
Oh my
by the
God.
surge of fentanyl in our country.
Her
That
entire
bill
family's
would have
probably
put
an
more
opiate family,
resources
I
to allow us
suspect.
to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he
Wow.
talks about fictional characters
She's
like
doing a
Hannibal
Hillary
Lecter.
Clinton.
He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first. And I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the
Please.
rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up
Fact.
Springfield, Ohio,
Fact,
and
dude.
ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this,
seen people on television.
let me just say here, this is
The people on television say
clear-
my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Wow.
This is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election, I actually
Look at her,
have the
man.
endorsement of
Look at her.
200
She is
Republicans
jacked
who
up.
have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney,
Too much
and John
Adderall.
McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney and Congress member Liz Cheney. And if you want to really
Saying that's a
know
compliment.
the inside track on who the former
Wow.
president is, if he didn't make it clear already,
Can we
just
clip
ask people
that?
who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit.
Who's he
His
talking
former
about?
Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never
Probably
survive
General Mattis.
another Trump term. And when we listen to this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you. Because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people. Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper, he was no good, I fired him, so he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier.
These are
so let's
facts.
get back
It's
to your
just the way he puts
deportation, proposal that the vice president
You know
has
what I'm
reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know
What do you
that
think she's
crime
writing?
in Venezuela and crime in
I am
countries all
powerful.
over the world
I am
is
powerful.
way down.
I
You know
am
why?
powerful.
Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow. And I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof. And we have a new form of crime. It's called migrant crime. And it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI they were defrauding
Look,
statements.
this guy
they
is now
didn't
doing their
include
job,
the
right?
worst cities. They
He's
didn't
doing part of the
include
debate. I
the
really
cities
don't like
with the
this
worst
guy.
crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is
What
so
a
rich.
dick face.
Coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement.
Most
The former vice
professional
president
cat
called for
on the
defunding
stage by
federal law
factor
enforcement,
30.
45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down just recently from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But those are cases, it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country. They weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those cases. And then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete and total victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's weaponization, and they used it, and it's never happened in this country. They used it to try and win an election. They're fake cases.
President Trump, thank you. A really quick response here, Vice President Harris, on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized, not me. She weaponized. I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy. I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot
that
to get.
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and
She's never owned her own house, dude.
Is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on longstanding work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well,
response?
first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now, if you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that
What
burned
happened?
down Minneapolis, she went out
I'm
and
just
raised
said,
money to get them
I'm
out
talking.
of jail.
Do you mind?
She
Does
did
that sound
things that nobody
familiar?
would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got
She
the oil
hates
business
fossil
going like
fuel,
nobody
dude.
has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher, because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline. So they said, let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead. Fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400,
President
500 acres of desert
President
soil.
Trump, we have a
These
lot
are
of
not good
issues
things
that we
for the
have to get
environment,
to.
as
We're
she
out of time.
understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our
Here we
democracy
go.
and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march to the Capitol. You said you would be right there with them. The country and the world saw what played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle? They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a
Look at
tape
this
of her
comment.
saying she is
So
fully
sad.
responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi, but I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
What a dick.
I was at
This
the
is
Capitol
just
on
not even
January
cool.
6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the president of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day,
She's definitely awake.
140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say, we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where bloodbath was. Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this, you talk about the Capitol. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you
Wow.
lost in 2020?
No, I didn't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You
But
know
those-
that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically. Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost 75 million votes, the most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican,
judge looked at it.
and said
They
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system where a person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter, because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists donors, voters, election officials, he says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States, and world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart, Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president. They were afraid of him. China was afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him. North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president. But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes. And when she ran, she was the first one to leave because she failed. And now she's running. I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it
Mr.
because
President, your time is
I
up.
think we're
Thank
going to
you.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas, a terrorist organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
President Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror, and they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around. Look at what's happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way,
President
gets paid
Trump,
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic ABC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
All right, guys. So I don't know what you're thinking so far. In my opinion, probably from the public perspective, I actually think it's pretty 50-50. Like, obviously, I have my own bias. I think Trump's landing some pretty good points. Kamala, I don't think is fucking up too bad. You know, she's playing the unity card. Like, she seems more composed than she does at most of her rallies and most of her talking points. So I actually think this is pretty even keeled. I think Trump's getting in a lot of really good points. And I think Trump is doing great. He's like really fierce. He's really on target. But I don't think Kamala is doing that awful either. It's very interesting to compare this to the Trump Biden debate, where Biden's just a vegetable, right? And it's almost made Trump worse because he was like, "How do I respond to this dude who no one understands what he's even saying?" So this is actually more of like an actual debate, which I find interesting. But I think from my perspective, I think they're both holding their own actually fairly well, even though obviously I know Kamala's shilling a lot of lies.
Yeah, I can't hold back her performance. I mean, however she got there, she has outperformed what I was expecting. In fact, I would say that if I didn't know anything about her, I'd go, hey, she has done better than every other professional politician that's ever competed against this cat. Now, we have another 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I think that says a lot to both you and I's integrity because, you know, we prefer to see Trump probably knock this fucking girl out. But she's not doing a bad job. So they prepped her well. Whatever drug she's on, she's bright right now. Let's see if it can maintain, right? I feel like I'm a sports announcer, dude. This is now we're watching that third play here in the second quarter, third inning.
Well,
55
and
days left.
Of course, we come with the background that ABC's so clearly helping her. This is moderated to her Trump, right? There's no crowd. They're muting
that's
mics.
the guy. That's the guy that's going to lose here. Everybody's going to
ABC.
understand. Oh yeah, dude. Like, see, they don't have anything they have to do this now. It is so obvious now. They're basically government. They're stooges.
Yeah, smart. Yeah. Agreed.
They lose. Okay. This is what we should all pick up from this audience. We cannot believe anything that anyone has a bunch of makeup on and looks that pretty and controls conversations the way they do. Just don't trust them.
It's also interesting. He's only brought up being shot once, right? And it was kind of in passing. He hasn't really focused on that too much. And to your point, I have no idea who these moderators are. Never seen them.
Well,
don't know their name.
The woman evidently introduced Kamala to her husband.
Oh, really?
Whoopsie.
No bias there.
Yeah, there's some comments that picked up pieces. Great earpiece. What does that mean? Great earpiece. Oh, you like this? This is the piece that everybody told me not to get. Oh no, all those old guys, Sam. Like, no, you can't get that. You got to get that $800.
Why? I mean, if it works,
speaker.
it looks good.
It works great. Fuck's sake. She has somebody's saying she has a hearing device. Yeah, you know what? I think someone of that intellect, like I will say, I think she has an IQ of 108. I don't think she's the kind of person you could give another message to and have her respond the way she did. She stayed on point, man.
That's fair, yeah.
Like, you guys can say what you want, but she stayed on freaking point. I think he needs to give her a bunch of room, right? Like, let her go.
Well, I don't know if that'll work.
They're not going to let her, though.
Helping her.
Yeah, the moderator's going to help her.
Yeah, like what Hillary was not a bad debater, but they've learned from that because Hillary debated Trump with an audience, with no closing of the mics, right? So, and here we are, we're back. But now they've learned.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest. Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being uselessly,
That's the right answer.
people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like
Look at her.
weak
She's
people.
nodding her head, but she wouldn't even know.
You take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up. Just to clarify in the question, do you believe it's in the U.S. best interests for Ukraine to win this war? Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Negotiate a deal.
Great
because we
answer.
have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to
That's
get
the
your
right
thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as commander-in-chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president, you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now. But eventually, you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons. Nobody ever thinks about that. And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you
There's
ever
no
met Vladimir
interfering,
Putin?
Dave.
Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility. in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate. I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Stoltenberg said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO. We were being ripped off by European nations, both on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most incredible jobs that he's ever seen done.
Thank you. I want to turn to
Guarantee
Afghanistan.
there's a
It
lot
came
of
up in the
low-hanging
first hour
fruit
of the
there that
debate,
people could
and we
pick up.
witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do want to ask the Vice President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Wow.
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
So if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because
half a million people online, social media
I got
watching
involved. This. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very good agreement. The reason it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment behind. And just to finish, they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. I want to ask a bigger picture question here
Wow.
tonight.
Wow.
Why do you believe it's appropriate to weigh in on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words. So I'm
I
asking.
don't know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated because he refused to rent property to Black families. Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first Black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your 3rd time.
How old is she, Sam?
This is the most divisive
60.
presidency
Huh?
in the history of our country.
I think she's 60
There's
years
never
old.
been anything like it. They're
60?
destroying our country.
Yeah.
And they come up
No
with
way.
things like
Shit.
what she
looks
just
good if
said.
she's 60.
going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including
Yeah,
Mayor
she's not
Bloomberg, agreed
52,
with me
dude.
on the Central Park 5, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person ultimately.
She's 59.
And if they pled guilty, then they
Oh,
pled,
wow.
we're not guilty.
She looks
But
good. for
this is a
59.
person that has to stretch back years, 40, 50 years ago, because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember this, she is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad, and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up.
I want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country, one who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice President
and move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's
Trump,
turn back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
She
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues.
fracking in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Okay.
That's
you, Mr.
what her
President.
plan is until just recently.
I just need
Lindsay,
to
go ahead.
respond
President
because
Trump,
no, the
President
former
Trump.
president has
No,
said
I'm
something
sorry.
twice that I need to
No,
respond to.
I'm sorry. We're
I
gonna
just need to
move on,
respond
Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump, this
multiple
is
times.
now your
Yes.
third time running for president. You have long vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan? And can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, let's just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, As I've been vice president, and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice
Pass as
President
prologue
Harris, thank
in terms
you.
of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a
She
lot
made
of
a mistake. At number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get.
President
People
Trump.
are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable, but we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
What do you think, buddy?
All right. Well, they went over, right? It's 10:36, so they've gone beyond 90 minutes.
I would have lost bets on everything.
Yeah. So Good thing. I guess you didn't do the bet. Bad thing for anyone who should have taken the bet. I thought he did okay. The race question he did poorly, although it was set up for him to do poorly. I thought he was going to pivot and say, am I racist? Look at how well I did for the economy for blacks and Hispanics and whatnot. Like that would have been a good pivot, but he didn't say that. The climate change question, obviously, you didn't even really touch on it. So, I think, he didn't do as well as that round as I would have liked. But then also, those questions were geared personally toward him, right? Like, since when is there a question where they say, hey, Trump, you said this, and then the other questions are, let's talk about climate change, right? So when your question is attacking the opponent, who is Trump, I mean, how are you supposed to win that? I still think he could have answered it better, but obviously it's stacked against him. But your average viewer isn't going to understand that either. So, I think it's still overall 50-50. So after
tomorrow we'll have a full be able to have a full analysis how many people viewed this, because I'm not convinced that very many people are watching this anyway. But be interesting to. Yeah,
I thought you said I thought you said like 50 million people or something, didn't you, on social media or whatever?
Well, no, whatever I said, I don't think it was 50 million, but it was no, I think it was like 500,000, just on 4 or 5 different spaces on X, right?
Oh, true. Oh,
but it'll be interesting to see how many people actually see this and view it. And because I'm not convinced it's going to skew anyone's vote. Not at all. I think most people expected this to be like a car racing event where, you go to see the winner, but you're really going with this. Hey, I really want to see a train wreck, man. I want to see a 5-car pile up, right? I think people were expecting that. I didn't see it from her. I got to give her credit, man.
Yeah, I somewhat disagree in the sense that, one, the point of these debates is the clippable moments, and those will matter, and those are what people will see, right? Kind of those gotcha moments. 2, remember, my bias is like, I already know who I'm voting for. You probably already know who you're voting for. I have a hard time understanding the mind of someone who legitimately is like, oh, today I support Trump, tomorrow I support Kamala. Like, those people exist. I don't get it, but those people exist. So, you almost have to be like, okay, if I were to dumb myself down and just, watch this, and because I guarantee you there's a subset of the population that's going, oh, I haven't been paying attention, I'm going to make this my deciding vote off this debate. What would you be thinking? I don't know if this would really help an undecided voter. But you are right. It is more of like NASCAR, right? Where we're just like, I'm already on my team. I just want to see a car crash, right?
Well, I think for this, that it was, it's, I was expecting a train wreck of her. She's doing well.
Mm-hmm. The moderators are doing well.
Yeah. And that is grossly unfair. I think they're the big loser here. Which, by the way, for me, that's a big win for me. And I think it's a big win for the audience. Hey, the big loser here is the guy that was trying to make the money. So we're all going to disconnect and do our patriotic right and duty. And these two guys are going to fight it out. Nothing here really hurts Trump. That she would be cooperating with a media scam says everything to me, though. If you admit that the media is most definitely helping her, then she's actually that kid in high school you went to high school with that was willing and able to cheat, and they got away with it, but they weren't better than you, and you knew they weren't better than you.
We're back.
David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight 2 very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us
Well,
here at ABC News.
Sam, what do you think, buddy?
Closing statement was good for Trump. I think what I'm seeing on Twitter, which is not a bad point, and Joe Calasari is actually texting me right now about it. He thinks, and some people on Twitter think, it was a bad night for Trump, good night for Kamala. Why are they saying that? Because the expectation was that Kamala would do poorly and fumble. And anytime someone does better than expected, you're automatically thinking more positive about them, right? And so I think that here is the key, is if you were to say who's a winner or who's a loser, you could try to argue that Kamala is the winner because she did better than the expected. And Polymarket is apparently showing that. However, in my opinion, She didn't crush it as good as she should have to regain her momentum. So the big question is she going to be able to, or is the media going to be able to use her sound bites from this to keep her momentum going for the remainder of September, which is what she needs in order to win the election? I don't know. Because once again, Americans have very short attention spans. Like if the election was tomorrow, I think this would have helped Kamala's election for sure. But the election is not tomorrow. And this debate will be gone in memory in about a week or two. And I think Trump did a good job holding his own as best as he could, right? Against obviously biased moderators. I think he did quite well. I think he stayed on track for the most part. Some questions he didn't answer perfectly, but others I think he did quite well. So I think if I'm in Trump's camp, I'm not distraught, but I'm just like, fuck, we just got to grind harder. And if I'm in Kamala's camp, I'm excited that she didn't fuck up. Yeah, that'd be my take.
I would agree that if I'm in Kamala's camp, I'm like, wow, like she scored a 10. Really? Probably relative to expectations.
Expectations.
I mean, she's going to get absolutely slaughtered tonight. I mean, they're going to party like animals, which is probably good. Okay. Because I always get worried about having such a big lead. This always like, okay, focuses the mind, focuses all the voters. They're raising 3-1 to Trump. I don't get anything from raising money from Trump, by the way. Won't take any fees, but they are putting on a show. Now, I think if you ask me, hey, Gary, what do you think? Who do you think the big winner or loser is? I think the media was once again exposed for being absolutely hell-bent on driving a particular decision. And they've been doing this for way, 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 way too long. And I think they are the most exposed. And that's what I take away from this. I think she did. I will take my hat off to her. Hey, I don't know how you did it. You outperformed what I thought you would do. Now, the question is, are you a one-shot wonder, or can you repeat what real business people really value, which is, can you get back on the horse and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it? Because I heard her saying we need leadership. And, look, these things now, they're managed so well, right? Like they're managed so well, the way they've kind of boxed him in. So it can't get, look, this was a staged event.
Yeah.
And not all the players were in on the same set of rules. That, I think, can everyone agree to that? If you can't agree to that, you probably need to come up here and argue with me. And then I'm just going to say, hey, look, you really shouldn't be my friend because you're out of your fucking mind if you didn't see that thing was fucking cooked.
Yeah.
Cooked like in South Louisiana, cooked as in if your name ain't Boudreaux, you probably are a risk of getting fucking seriously hurt. Okay. And I mean, shit, dog. But
yeah.
Anybody come up here and tell me that wasn't cooked. See, that's the takeaway. That's so sad, dude. We live in a third world nation. Okay. That's what I get from this debate now.
Yeah. And what'll be interesting to see tomorrow is, to your point, how many people watched. If it was low turnout and not a lot of people watched, it's not going to help her that much. It's not going to help Kamala that much. If not,
this isn't going to swing it. This isn't going to swing it in. Like, there's nobody. Come on. Everybody knows that if you show them the media cooked it, then they're voting on basically, hey, do you want a 3-letter agency running your life? Or do you want to at least vote for a free market guy who's like trying? And I maintain, I don't know anybody that would want this job.
Yeah.
He did he look thinner to you than did he look like he lost some weight to me?
To be honest, I didn't notice.
Yeah, he looked all cheery and bright and but lean. What are the comments saying? Does anybody think that was a fair, not a staged event? 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah. We need decentralized AI to ask the questions and fact check in real time. Yeah, good luck with that one. That was beyond staged and set up for Kamala Harris. She was handed the questions, and I'm sure the ABC moderators knew which ones they would ask. Yeah, I mean, once again, though, did anybody expect it to be a fair debate? Joe, no. Well, no one who's in the know. I mean, once again, we're kind of in a bubble, right? We're in a bubble.
Joe,
of
you're
people
such a cynic.
Well, we're in a bubble of
See,
people
that's
who pay
not a good
attention.
question, though, Joe. I'm going to hold Joe and his legal mind responsible. That can't be the right question.
What do you think the right question is?
It should be a fair debate. Or we should quit claiming to be exceptional, American, open, fair, equitable, and reasonable.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just
this shows to me it's a fucking organized crime. I mean, seriously, exactly the way I grew up thinking about the mafia, except it's like, whoa, it's on steroids.
Yeah. I mean, we know it's all staged. Once again, getting in the mind of someone who's actually undecided. But at the end of the day, all that matters is Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, right? Like, what do the notice how many times they brought up fracking, right?
Yeah.
Everything's about Pennsylvania. Both of them brought
Yeah.
up fracking multiple times.
Yeah, they're going to fight over Pennsylvania for sure.
If Trump
That's
wins
not new, though,
Pennsylvania-
right? That's not new, right? You have to win Pennsylvania, right? It's a very important state. I'm not a political.
No,
hack, so.
it is, but it's this previous elections, Florida was the state to win. But Florida's now so solid red. Like they used to say, like elections were decided along the I-4 corridor because whoever won Florida would win the election. Florida's out of the question now. So now all the focus is on Pennsylvania. Trump was the first president to bring Pennsylvania back into the question and put it on the map for Republicans. So this is the first time that it's been like, wow, Pennsylvania's getting constant heat and traction. Most of the ad money, most of the door knockers are all going to be in Pennsylvania. If Trump wins Pennsylvania, Kamala has like one path to victory, right? Like if Trump wins Pennsylvania, it's pretty much over. If Trump loses Pennsylvania, then he has to win other blue wall states like Michigan or Wisconsin in order to win. So it's just the math. Because also in the previous elections now, Florida has more electoral votes. Like the electoral counter has changed among all the states. So that's changed the strategy as well. It is interesting. I mean, imagine living in Pennsylvania right now. You must feel very special getting all this attention.
Yeah, but the Biden administration has not been good to the fossil fuel players, right? I can tell that by their stock multiples. So these people have really long memories. Who does the oil industry? And that, listen, Pennsylvania is oil and guns, right? You know, I didn't know that Pennsylvania has more weapons per capita than any other state.
No way. I didn't know that either.
Oh, dude, I was down there on a business meeting once and got hooked up online with a guy that knew a guy that knew a guy. And, you know, all of a sudden I'm with a guy with a bunch of gear 30 miles out from Pittsburgh. I'm like in a rental car. And I'm like, how did I get involved with this deal? But I was looking for some interesting equipment. Yeah, and that's where I learned that. I think it's the most densely populated weapons state per capita in the United States. I think. Could be wrong.
You know, the states are so interesting because, you know, someone could say, well, I know Florida. And then you and I could be like, you know, no, we know Florida. Florida is very different. But even Pennsylvania is like two different states. Like Western Pennsylvania is completely different than the coast, right? Philadelphia is a very different city than Pittsburgh, different types of people. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they're courting. Like even the fracking's all what? It's on the western, southern side of Pennsylvania, right? Where it's closer to Ohio and Kentucky. And then you have the other people all the way in Philadelphia, like completely different electorate, completely different makeup. So it'll be interesting. We're not going to have another debate, right? Like this is it. She hasn't agreed to another debate. Trump's going to do some town halls. But
Oh, seriously, we get one big shot, huh? Wow. Yep. This is a miraculous 50-year-old woman.
Yeah. Trump tried to do 3 and she said, nope, you're just doing 1. If anyone wants to correct me on that, but that's all I've seen. She said no to the 2 other debates, only said yes to the ABC one. Joe, if you're trying to change the system, you should fully expect the system to fight back and the process not to be fair. It is so surprising to me that people think the process is even-handed. It's never been even-handed, even in the early days of the union. Yeah, I mean, I think, well,
that doesn't make it right.
Yeah, it's never been even-handed.
We're okay, cool. So what? I got it. I know that, Joe. Show up, stick the camera on, man. Let's chat about it. Let's engage. I shouldn't use the ARMY word, right? Let's engage a tribe. Where are you, my friend?
Well, and even, I think there's a difference. Like the media has always kind of picked a favorite, but I think you can still claim that there are times where they were more even-handed.
Just for show. Look, I am not giving anyone credit for doing what they should do in any normal debate. So
sure,
you can't sit there and go, oh wow, they didn't just pound on Trump. Right, and go, hey, let me give you credit for it. That's like I expect proper rules, man. Okay, otherwise, me and Joe can get in a little box together and agree that we're going to go boxing or debate, and then I bring a 45 and blow his face off. Hey, man, just wanted to win the debate really quick. I mean, this is exactly. We're beginning to rationalize slippery, right? All these I think it's obnoxious that a debate like this would be managed.
It's interesting still. Why do you think he didn't bring up his assassination attempt more?
Don't know. I don't think he really ran he was never in control of the debate tonight.
No, I agree with that actually. But that's, it was set up. They mute the mics. You have to allow them to speak. The only way you can be in control is when the mics are open. But they learned that from Hillary Clinton and they said they're never letting that happen again. But it is curious. Like he didn't even bring it up. He didn't try to wear it as a badge of honor and say, there's only one of us up here who's had an assassination attempt, right? Just interesting because you think that'd be a good emotional polling point, but maybe whatever his team told him said, no, don't bring that up. Not useful, which is weird to me. They used to duel in Congress. Yeah, on rare occasions.
Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't know what to expect. I mean, I do agree with the audience. It doesn't look like she was surprised by where they were headed, and neither one of them may be surprised. Maybe they told them both overview.
Yeah,
I suspect they did. None of this, though, is rationalizing that they were balanced or fair or good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't get there. I expect this kind of shit from a banana republic. I'd love somebody to come up and tell me how this is different than a banana republic. And everything else is literally pure justification because it's so hard to confront.
Yeah.
It is. It's so hard for me to confront and say it out loud. I actually say it, and just the audience, I think I'm going to get in trouble. Right? I say it, and I'm like, oh, wow, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? I've never thought about that before. All right, Sam. Hey, it's 11 o'clock. We're not going to change the direction of this vote. Should we go to sleep? Because I'm kind of tired.
Yeah. No, hey, I appreciate you guys all coming on, being here, watching the debate with us. Seriously, it's a lot more fun watching with people. I enjoyed reading your comments. I think it's pretty cool. And we're not going to get another debate, right? Like, this is it, which is, that's what's odd to me. Like,
anticlimactic, man.
Yeah. Yeah, very. The next thing we're going to be doing together around this is voting. Like, the next activity we're doing is voting.
Wow. So really tonight was showing us that, especially that we're even having to defend it, that this is all a staged event. Because the performance I saw tonight, okay, is not presidential leadership material. See, that's the thing we're not doing. We're not looking at, hey, how did she do? You asked me how she did. I'm like, hey, she did a lot better than I thought she was going to do. Wouldn't let her run a nuclear fucking submarine division, much less an entire country. See that look how slippery we have become. So lowered the bar, man. Dude, like, I mean, the bar like must be like, I don't know, she's got an IQ.
Yeah, she can. That's right. She can move her hands. She can paint her nails. She's alive.
Heartbeat incoming, and her eyes were bright. Oh, yay.
You know what is true, Gary? Actually, there is one thing everyone agreed about tonight, and it was how terrible Joe Biden is. None of them said anything positive. I don't think I heard Kamala say anything positive about Joe Biden, right? And the only reason she defended, quote unquote, him was she was just defending herself. Nothing positive about Joe Biden, which I find is so fascinating how they have just thrown him under the bus so effortlessly. Talk about being forgotten. Talk about being forgotten. So I find that very fascinating.
Well, he was a total puppet, though. I mean,
yeah.
Like, we have to really understand a total puppet. That's what you do with puppets. You throw them away like little rag dolls.
Yeah, really.
I'm surprised that he hasn't been terminated.
Wow.
I'm really surprised. I would have thought that,
why? Probably because Kamala can't run how she's running now if he dies. She
why
can't
would
say
that
I'm not.
change?
Because the whole thing the media has done since her being the ahead of the campaign is separating Joe Biden from her. Just like they did with the debate tonight. She's saying, my platform, here's what I'm going to do. She could do it right now. But if she has the power, now her hand's forced and she can actually do it right now. So I think that's their whole logic is, hey, let's just let him write it out so we can say, oh, no, it's two separate people. Kamala's not running the country. Biden is, right? But as soon as she has executive power, then she can't use that scapegoat anymore. That would be my only assumption as to why he hasn't just been actually tossed out.
Yeah. So let me just throw this by you, right? Because I've never been a believer that she was there, that she was going to take office. Tonight, that changes everything. Because I don't see someone that they can look at. Now, having said that, I thought that they couldn't throw Biden under the bus for his performance either. Because I didn't think his performance was as bad as everyone thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And there's no way that anybody could build a case, hey, she cannot possibly run. Now, so she's now into I don't know if you've ever heard of this term of any adventure where you go past the point of no return, where you literally are going past the edge, and it's like, hey, you better keep going or there's no point. You can't come back. She just hit that point tonight.
Yeah.
You can't pull her back and she can't stop. And if she's not a disciplined, what's a champion, like marathon runner, she will crash and burn, dude. Okay, because like it doesn't mean that you can't perform at all, but sometimes if you do have a good performance, then you're like, oh shit, I have to do this for another 88 days straight. Oh my God. And like just the commitment's too big because they're not in it. I don't see it in her where she's like, I want to free this country. The way I see Trump, I see a very different organic reason to be there for lack of a better, you know what I'm saying?
I agree. I think that's spot on.
But so I think we're at a point of no return. I was expecting Obama or whatever the other person's name is to show up, Clinton, and play some role. But I think the Democrats have got a position where Kamala Harris is absolutely, and her boy, what's his name,
Walls, yeah.
This is the world we're going into, folks. Ooh.
Yeah, if you have any cats, keep them close to home.
Man, bro, this is
yeah, he
I
should
dream-
and he will, but it
Joe,
doesn't
you
matter.
know what? No, nobody, the masses aren't going to bitch enough about it. Like I can see it in the comments, like, oh, people are going to give up again. It's really scary to me.
One, they never will. They'll never accept another debate, especially with Kamala leaving on a high note. No way you would risk that again.
No way, dude. If you've gotten that far and it's kind of accepted, there's only going to be one. Why would she do that?
Yeah.
Well, what does the stock market do tomorrow? Does Henry want to come down here? He looks like he's laughing his ass off. Henry, you got something to say there, boy? Henry.
I don't know what he's doing.
I think Henry's tripping out or something.
Yeah, probably. You know, a good question. I think the stock market, do you think it'll predict that do you think the stock market will act like Kamala's going to win?
Dude, the stock market will most certainly have some response. Anybody got an idea what that means? I don't think it would be negative for down 11%. Yeah, Ben, sure. Down 11%.
Well, I've heard actually.
Well, it is September the 11th tomorrow. Kind of funny, huh?
Oh, that is right. Wow, you're right.
9/11, baby. 9/11 in 52 minutes.
Yeah. I don't know.
Well, I'm going to go to bed then.
All right, Gary.
I'll say the market's up.
You'll say it's up
tomorrow. Yeah, I say it's up.
We'll find out.
I don't know. There's no carnal damage done here.
Yeah.
Maybe it wasn't even baked into the price, but we got 57,196 Bitcoin. 57 grand. So, it's not the end of the world. All right, Sam, if you don't have anything else, why don't we tell everybody to go do something really wonderful tomorrow morning for somebody else and don't take credit for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Stick to the mission, guys. We'll see you.
Thank you, buddy.
We'll see you on Spaces Thursday. Thanks, Gary.
Enjoyed it, man. Thank you. You want me to end it or leave studio?
No, end
I never
it.
can forget. Thank you.
No,
sir.
leave.
Thank you.
Leave. End it, then leave studio.
See you guys. Hey, you guys all go out and vote for Kamala, okay? Good night.